And Stan, I mean, we're all very blessed that you're on this call with us and for the work that you've done. It's just such an incredible legacy. Last week, we had a webinar with Rick Doblin, and I mentioned this earlier, but you should know that he said on the webinar last week that if it were not for you, he would never have learned about these medicines. He wouldn't have started MAPS. And so he made a wonderful tribute to you last week. Brigitte, I was just saying that last week, Rick Doblin acknowledged that Stan was responsible entirely for his interest in this field. So, yeah, pretty remarkable. So, Susan, did you want to at all comment on the process of the film or ask Stan or Brigitte any questions? Otherwise, I know there's also some questions in the chat and so on as well. But
just that, you know, the process of making the movie was so much a collaborative effort with Stan. And I was very thankful for his constant review of especially our reenactment footage to verify the accuracy of everything. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Brigitte has known Stan for so long, and it was her archival photographs of Esalen and all the people that came through during those years that Stan was there that provided a lot of our, you know, photographic content. So, and other images that she took during their trip, their many trips to Easter Island and other places around the world, Peru. So Brigitte has been an amazing source of content, as well as contributing her understanding of some of the ideas that we shared. So it was a very collaborative effort.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you all for your collaboration. It's wonderful, inspirational. And Peter, do you want to come and say hello and ask a question to Stan and Brigitte?
Yeah. Hello, Stan and Brigitte.
Remember Peter from Esalen.
Yeah, I wanted to get onto an area which Stan touched upon in the documentary, and that is that if you're a conventional psychiatrist or psychologist and you've learnt your trade or profession from books and from observing your patients, and you've never taken these medicines, this is really challenging stuff. Mm-hmm. How do we bridge the gap? But those people are actually really important, because we need to take them on the journey for these medicines to be used again. How do we get across to them just how important these medicines can be in terms of helping people with mental illnesses?
Okay, well, good evening, it is, yeah, where you are. Well, thank you very much. Before I start talking here, I would like to say something. 2 years ago, I had a stroke, and it hit me in my speech centers. You know, I had not paralyzed, or I didn't really influence my mind, but the speech is a problem. So when I have some problem, I would like to ask Brigitte here.
I'm helping out.
I'm also going to 90 years, and you know, have some problems hearing. So anyway, now what's happening now is amazing. You know, after 40 years when nothing was happening with psychedelics, there is now a real renaissance. Mm-hmm. And it's happening all over the world now. And maybe it didn't hit that much Australia, but I'm sure it will come sooner or later. Now it's tremendous emphasis on therapy. Mm-hmm. You know, there are other kinds of things in the 60s and so on. A lot of the problem with war, fight, you know, against war, and this created a lot of problems about psychedelics. Mm-hmm. when it was forbidden. Now it's getting one after another country, it's happening. A lot of research is happening, and actually therapy is happening in many places. Canada, for example, recently is dying a much better psychedelic. Some people have now the psilocybin, and MDMA, they will be very quickly become mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also a situation where people know how to do it much better. Before it was very wild, and it is a very powerful. Those are very powerful substances. I have a lot of awe and to what psychedelics can do on both sides, on therapy, and on the other hand, I have seen people who were doing them on their own and didn't have
had problems,
bad experiences, and ended up in psychiatry for a long time. So those are amazing substances, and it can really change not individually people, but I believe that could really cause the situation in the planet if it's done properly.
Definitely, we definitely need to put it in the water supply.
But also, what might be a good bridge is the holotropic breathwork, or the Grof breathwork, as we call it now. So, that the people would not be so, maybe I'd rather do breathwork than psychedelics to start with, and then if they like the breathwork, they would get interested in psychedelics. So that's actually a good way.
It's a great beginning, for many people.
Yes.
And you can have very powerful experiences.
It'd be very powerful.
So, we have just created a new training, the Grof Legacy training. So, well, we don't have it in Australia yet, but we may get there.
We'd love you to.
So,
we will help you.
Yes,
Thank you,
we just started this spring, and it's really based on Stan's work, like The Way of the Psychonaut. Also has written this book, this encyclopedia, The Way of the Psychonaut, with all his knowledge in there. And so the new training is really based on how he is now and how he wants the work to be taught. And so you can find it on our website, groflegacytraining.com, but we're still building it. So we hopefully get something in Australia for you.
I was actually had a lot of memories as I was watching the movie, remembering, I've been many times in Australia, of course, with that whole round there. And so I'm sure there are quite a few people all over Australia,
Yeah.
They still remember those times. So
Absolutely, there are actually some people on this screening who have worked with you in Australia as well as other places in the world. Quite a few. So I think they're all so happy to see you. We're getting lots of positive comments. There's a question here that I wanted to address, which is about Jung, Carl Jung. Obviously there was a lot of references to the work of Carl Jung in this documentary, but it wasn't mentioned so much. How has Carl Jung influenced the work that you've been doing, Brigitte and Stan?
I still didn't have any connection with Jung until I came to America, because when I was in Czechoslovakia, we had no access to other books because we didn't have hard money, couldn't buy that. So I actually found a lot of similarity with Jung before I ever saw Jung. And he's amazing, you know, he is like a lot of long, far beyond Freud, where of sure open up this depth psychology, you know. So he took psychiatry from in the direction to mysticism, spirituality, and so on, which of course Freud didn't have. So there's people who have psychedelic experiences or holotropic experiences, they go to Jung.
Yes.
And
It's amazing.
Again, in this work, I mean, you have the own experience. You're not reading a book, you know, and then you try to make an experience for the book. But I mean, Stan discovered this all without a map. I mean, it just came up, and then later he found, oh, this was already there in these religions and so on, or in Jung and so on. But it came from within and from the observations of his own experiences and the people. And that's actually also, that's how it works. The same if psychiatrists, they would have to be interested in this kind of thing and then make their own experiences. And then it's really necessary, if you want to be working with people, you need to have been there yourself. I mean, like Stanislav was describing, this is not a Sunday walk. This is really powerful stuff. And you can only encourage people when you've gone through this yourself, you know. That's what I said, working with Stan, of course, closely outside and inside. I said, well, how could you have that courage to go there, not knowing where it would go, you know? I mean, people, if you're dying, you go crazy. This is really, how would you have that courage? And you didn't have these maps. And he said, I was just so curious, which is true. So,
you know, Brigitte mentioned about the Psychonaut. So in the movie, there is really nothing about Jung, but there is quite a bit in the Psychonaut in my book, of course.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's one chapter where these several of the major pioneers in depth psychology, you know, there is also Rank about birth and so on. And there is Reich.
Yes.
And Shandor, you know, and of course Jung. And like how many of their work now are confirmed by psychedelics, and which would be seen differently than those people that people brought into depth psychology.
There's another question here as well, which is how do you explain how the same person using the same medicine has such different experiences each time? So, you know, you might have 10 experiences with the medicine over, say, a period of 5 years. Yeah. How come it's different every single time? What's happening there?
It's very, very important, you know, because at the beginning, we were looking at LSD and other psychedelics. I believe that the secret was really inside of the substances. And so when I did the first research, we were seeing quite a few individuals and giving different substances. And I became very, very fascinated by the fact that there was such, what I would say, tremendous intra-individual variability. You know, when you have psychedelic experience today, and you have it 2 weeks from now, it's going to be something completely different. And of course, in the same, we were doing it to the same kind of people under the same set and setting, the same dosages and so on. And each session was completely different. So at a certain point, I suddenly saw we were not really studying psychedelics. We're not studying the substances. This is not pharmacology. What the psychedelics are, they are catalysts. They're bringing sort of the depth psyche open, you know. So I just became completely lost interest in the pharmacology and took it back to clinics, because I realized this is about psyche. This is not about substances. You see that many different substances can have very similar kind of experiences. And then we saw it the same with the breath work. Then it's clear, you know, that it is really about the psyche. It's not about that's coming from the outside. And the problem is that until today, psychiatry has not accepted what LSD and other substances brought. For example, psychiatrists believe, like what Freud said, that the newborn baby is as a tabula rasa. Yeah, there's nothing there. And this is, of course, not you saw from the movie the powerful experiences that happen from prenatal and perinatal experiences, and many of them coming from past lives, and they're coming from spiritual experiences, from archetypes, and so on. So, what the psyche that we have today is just very surface, you know, of what psychiatrists call psyche. It's much similar to what you see in some of the great philosophies of the East, you know, Buddhism, Hinduism, you know, Taoism, of course, ancient people, they knew the psyche much better because they were dying these non-ordinary experiences.
Great answer. And Stan, there's so many questions now coming, but I'll tell you this one. Great question. What is your hope for the world? What do you see as the potential for us as a human species, and how do we go about living together, perhaps being less divided and more healthy and happy and inclusive?
I think, you know, we have known now for a long time that the universe and particularly the planet is one. You know, we saw some of the things that happened, for example, with atomic problems and so on. This is happening in one place, and then comes to the rest of the earth. You know, things that pollution is happening and all that. This is not isolated to any one country and so on. So we have known it,
the virus,
but don't act on it. You know, and I think what happened now with pandemic, you know, it just came, you know, so obvious that is happening, and when we learn these kinds of what happened now during this epidemic, and it happened. We should understand, you know, that we should live in a very different way, and I hope we have now examples, you know, for it. It's very few people who don't see it. You know, before that, maybe they were transpersonal psychologists and some physicists knowing and so on. But today, maybe with a few people, like in America, including the president, you know, they don't still understand what is happening. But most people are getting the understanding. And then the question would be what we can do, you know, that people start seeing this way, and this holotropic states. I'm not talking just about psychedelics, but also the breath work and then what we call spiritual emergency. There are people who have spontaneous experiences, very similar what is happening either in psychedelics or what's happening in holotropic breathwork. People have it spontaneously, and unfortunately, because of the psychiatry that we have, they get hospitalized, and they end up in for many years sometimes, you know. So we have to, hopefully we start have a different kind of approach, you know, to the substances, and also to how we treat with people who already are open to this in the spiritual emergencies.
Thank you. And Susan, I have a question for you, and that is, you know, how long did this take you to really make? I mean, your whole life, I guess, sort of brought you to this point, but.
I think start to finish, we met, Stan, in 2014. Well, actually, no, I took a breathwork workshop with you, I believe, in 2013. So we started working in 2014, so it's been 6 years. And, you know, the process of editing and reviewing and working with Brigitte to raise the money and pay for everything. It's been quite a process, but it's been a beautiful process. And what I'd like to add, Stan, is that the epilogue, I signed up for an online master's through California Institute of Integral Studies. And in the course of our learning about archetypal astrology, we've been reading the epilogue that Rick Tarnas wrote for Stan's 2 volumes of The Way of the Psychonaut. And in it, Rick and Stan describe how the archetypes, that the archetypal forces are the things that are really shaping the birth process. And so, unfortunately, I hadn't gotten that amount of information before we made the movie, or we would have given that a bit more emphasis. So it's sort of an epilogue, I feel, to the movie, is this understanding of the archetypes as these incredibly powerful formative forces. And so, you know, buying Stan's book is just a whole other level of information. The movie is really an introduction to Stan's ideas and philosophies. And then on the website, The Way of the Psychonaut, we have all of the expert full-length interviews available with the Q&As that followed. And pretty much everybody but Robin Carhart Harris, who had just had a baby, joined us afterwards to talk. And there are a few question and answer sessions that we had in that. And then I think Martina Hoffman with her beautiful art, and Robert Venosa, Stan had interviewed them years before. And then there's also a 55-minute interview with Stan where he goes in depth on the psyche and the archetypes. So I highly recommend checking that out. They're called Livestream Archives, thewayofthepsychonaut.com, and you can find it through the watch page. You have to become a member, but it's free.
Ilan, will you put that into the thank you note as well?
Well, and also you can buy the movie there.
Oh yeah,
Right.
that helps.
We have some more time. I'd like to say something about Susan. We are not talking about you. And this was amazing what you have done. You know, this is not only you transform yourself. You also did a lot of study in transpersonal psychology. Now talk about CIS and so on. So you had really done a lot of work for that, and you actually did all kinds of experiences of substances. You know, this is not something from your head. We saw a couple of them, and then there were many beside it, and you also brought into it a lot of stories from the 60s. You know. So it talks about my life and my work, but it's about you
We will definitely all have to jump onto that. Susan, if you could send us those links, we'll include them in the thank you note to everyone who joined, because yeah, I mean, we had a really strong interest, for this session.
So what is also available, if you don't want to read the book, you can listen to it. And Becca Tarnas, Rick Tarnas' daughter, she
was in the movie, yeah.
We could win her to read this book, and she's just so beautiful, and she really knows what she's talking about, and her voice is just amazing. So this you can purchase on the MAPS, multidisciplinary organization for
psychedelic studies.
Yeah, we had Rick on. You know, Max.
We were initially trying to get actors, you know, who would do it, and everybody's saying there should be a male voice there, and we saw maybe 10 or more of them, and we just
turned them all down. It was horrible.
And then we heard Becca and said, Eka, we said, and we said, of course, you know, this is it. Why not with a female voice? And if it's a beautiful voice.
She's
and
amazing.
If you really, I mean, I like to watch it.
To listen.
Listen to it, yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Amazing.
In the car, you can do
she
it.
Did it.
If you have long drives.
She did the whole, this is about 80 pages. 800 pages.
800.
Susan, would you send us that also?
In 10 days.
In 10 days, she read
and
it.
And if you read it now, you read at the end, it's as fresh as it was at the beginning.
Amazing.
Yeah. So. There's another question here. Brigitte, you might also feel inclined to answer this one, which is, what are the neuropharmacological mechanisms that allow psychedelics to overcome childhood amnesia in order to access perinatal experiences?
Can you say that once more?
I think I could. I think I can answer this a bit better, just because I've interviewed Paul Grof and also Robin Carhart Harris. And so what they're finding in terms of neurophysiology, what the psychedelics do is they open the neural pathways so that all of the brain is available at once. Normally the brain has a pattern, you know, like the regions that we consider to be responsible for certain capacities or function pretty much stick to themselves, and there's a pattern. They call it a hierarchical pattern. And when you take a psychedelic, that opens everything to everything at once. And so you have neural pathways are suddenly in contact with regions of the brain they normally would not have. And Rupert Sheldrake adds to this perspective the idea of the brain or the mind as a field. So the field theory of the mind. So if suddenly the brain is totally lit up, then the field that the mind is, you know, exists within is suddenly available. And so you have access to information that you would normally not have. Once the psychedelic wears off, then you go back to the way your brain normally functions. But that connection to this field of information has been opened. And what Paul Grof discovered in his study of mood disorders is the brain has wave patterns, and that they normally exist in a range. And so a mood disorder, whether it's manic or depressive, goes beyond that range, and a psychedelic experience goes beyond that range. And so that once that wave pattern has been experienced, you can get it back. And so if you've had these experiences and then use meditation or focused intention, you can get very, very close to what you experienced under the influence of a substance. And it's also why a psychedelic experience has waves, you know, where it's, you have this, oh my God, here it comes, you know, and then it fades and then it comes back. It's because of this oscillating pattern of the brain. And that's how flashbacks occur, even though the substance might be fully out of your system. So hopefully that answers the question.
No, that's a fascinating answer. And there's a question actually here also to you, Susan. Did you have any pushback and same for you, Brigitte, in trying to get funding for the film because it was about psychedelics? You know, did the stigma of psychedelics make it harder or make it easier to fund the film?
Well, initially, before Brigitte stepped in and reached out to a circle of friends that really support Stan's work, and John Buchanan, our executive producer, is amazing. His support of this project, we would not have completed it without his participation. And I did initially go out to some, you know, standard film funding sources, and we had no response. And so I think it was because we were talking about substances that are considered illegal. But in the course of making this movie, where I live in the state of Oregon in the United States, we have just legalized psilocybin therapy, and not for, you know, specifically mental illness, just as wellness therapy. It's still, you know, they have to work out the details, and we've decriminalized all substances. So we're definitely moving forward.
No, I mean, we're making a lot of progress, and films like these are just so important to move the field forwards. And so that people understand, you know, also that these medicines have been with us, you know, since the beginning. It's so important to remember, for people to remember that they're not something new and, you know, innovative. They've been here guiding us all the way through. We just haven't been listening that well.
Well, speaking of the funding, I mean, it's been really hard to get money for this. I mean, you know, so Susan did an amazing job out of not much money there. And so we still can use some funding. So if there's anybody who wants to contribute to, there's still things to do and to keep up the platform. And, you know, which is all work for free for this, which is fine. But just to keep the project going, you know, if anybody wants to contribute something, we'll still be happy to receive something for that.
Susan, maybe you could also send us a link for that when you send us the other links. And I think, you know, if some of you out there want to have screenings, of course, we can put you in touch with Susan, and you might want to show this film to some of your communities of practitioners and others as well. That would be wonderful. What I might do now, before I say thank you and so on, is we might just have a couple more slides to show you what we have planned and some of the upcoming webinars. It will only take a couple of minutes, and then we'll say, maybe we'll ask you to just say a parting sentence or two each about how people could go forwards from this film and what they could maybe do that will make a difference in their own lives or their own communities. I might ask you to make a closing statement, each of the three of you. So Ilan, if you could just please put the slides back on briefly. So this is just to show you something weird about the image here. It's got like boxes in it. There it's got. So this is our psychological support service. So if you do need some support, please contact us. And as mentioned earlier, we have a wonderful team of psychologists and psychotherapists around Australia who will support whatever you need. Next slide, thank you. And this is Tim Ferriss's quote, and this goes really to Susan and Brigitte in terms of, you know, any donations into this field, especially to not-for-profit organisations who have, you know, positive intentions towards these medicines and want to heal mental illness genuinely, is really important, because we're at a tipping point now, and the more that all of you can contribute to this now, the more chance we have of these medicines becoming available as soon as possible to those who need them so desperately. The next slide, thank you, Ilan. And this is how you can help, you know, share this film, share conversations. We have a wonderful learning platform on our website You can join our chapters, start chapters, talk to your doctors, doctor by doctor, medical professional by medical professional, politician by politician. And it's amazing, once people start to understand the science and not the stigma, it changes everything. And of course, please do support our charity and other charities in this space, because we can do this together. It really is getting very close now. And please join our other events. Next slide, Ilan. This is the Certificate in Psychedelic-Assisted Therapies, which is commencing in late January. Our first intake, a very exciting course that is being developed, and we welcome you to that. Those of you who would like to become psychedelic-assisted therapists or add that as an adjunct to the other modalities that you practice in, we really welcome you. And I will just repeat again that we have got Dr. Gabor Mate, Rick Doblin, David Nutt, many other of the wonderful Ben Sessa and others as teachers in this training program. Next slide, thank you. And this is the Summit on Psychedelic Therapies for Mental Illness in November 2021. We invite you to come. If you haven't already got tickets, please get them. We've already sold 300 tickets, and we're really very excited about this. In fact, we've also just confirmed Johan Hari as a speaker for the summit as well, who wrote the wonderful book, Lost Connections. And the next slide. As I mentioned, we have just put in rescheduling applications for psilocybin and MDMA. And if we all cross our fingers and toes and send, you know, who knows what sort of energy, positive and healing energy to the regulators, maybe we will be the first country in the world to actually reschedule psilocybin and MDMA. Who knows, Australia could also be a leader in this space. And the next slide. These are the upcoming webinars. So we have some very interesting webinars in 2021, including endocannabinoid medicines. We have a screening of Trip of Compassion in Cairns. We have a wonderful webinar by Dr. Robin Carhart-Harris, where he's going to talk about the results of his current research trial comparing psilocybin with SSRIs. I think that will be absolutely fascinating, and more will be announced shortly. Dr. Gabor Mate is also going to present a webinar for us in 2021. We'll move to the next slide now. No, I think that's it. And, and I just want to say again to all of you, thank you. Thank you for your support of Mind Medicine Australia. And we couldn't do this without you. This is all about creating a community and recognizing, as Stan so profoundly says in the documentary, you know, that we're all one. And, you know, every single action that we take affects others in ways that we don't even realize sometimes. So I just like to start maybe with you, Susan, if you would like to make some kind of final comment about what we could do as a result of your documentary, or a process, a way forward for ourselves and for the planet.
Well, I just welcome everybody to share the movie, and we'll be sharing the links to where to get it. And also, the reason that I felt it was important to stream all of our full-length interviews is I really looked at the information that's presented as a representation of a new paradigm of science, and what will make it easier for the larger whole of our population to move forward is to expand their understanding of what reality is. And once we do that, when we start to see that we really are one, and so that's why all these full-length interviews are included, because it's an education. And it was my way of taking all this information and creating a platform that could hopefully people could use to benefit themselves, and then introduce to their friends and family, so that it just keeps spreading like a good pandemic. You know, the kind of pandemic we need. So
this is the real pandemic, the one we need. Yes, I love that. And Brigitte.
Well, I would just probably express what we both feel, that we have a deep appreciation and admiration for everybody undertaking these inner journeys and engaging in the world for a better world, for the heart and spirit, and on the life on our beautiful planet together. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you. And Stan, I will leave you with the last word here.
Well, again, thank you very much for everything. Maybe what I would like to say that I was very happy that the film was finished, at least the parts that I had to talk. Also, before I had the stroke, I had this another great situation, which was finished the Psychonaut just before the stroke. And also I was able to write a long interview, which was with Tim Ferriss.
Yes.
You know, probably the best I have ever done. This was just a few weeks before that. So what I would like the people to now go and look at those things which happened before the stroke. You know, what I'm doing now is, I say, is copies.
No,
I don't think so, Stan. You know, Stan,
I have another idea. If you want to study more, there is the series, The Way of the Psychonaut, a 24 teleseminars, a series from the Shift Network in California. So there you can see Stan talk about everything and show slides and so on. It's really, really nice. So
it's fantastic. Well, Stan, I don't think you've lost any of your wonderful spirit, which shines through everything that you do. And yeah, you seem like the same handsome guy that we met in Esselen a couple of years ago. And I'm sure there's a lot of people here who are writing messages when they met you in the 1990s, and you say you haven't changed at all. So it's all very positive.
thank you.
But thank you
so much.
No, thank you. And thank you from our hearts in Australia. It's so important.
We both love Australia. We have both have been there.
Yes, we love Australia. So I don't know, hopefully we can travel again at some point.
Absolutely. Well, you know, if you're around in November, any of the three of you, you know, and you want to come, please let us know. We'd welcome you.
Where are you, Tanya? Where are you?
In Melbourne.
Where?
Melbourne.
Melbourne. Okay.
Yeah.
Melbourne.
Yeah. So we welcome you, and we send you our love, our light, and just thank you. So much gratitude. It really made our day when you, especially when Susan said that you would both be on this webinar with us. So thank you. Very good, big blessings.
Well, thank you.
Thank you all, everyone, and we'll see you again soon. Big clap for standing ovation. Thank you all. Good day, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you.